Alright, welcome back. In this video we are going to talk just specifically about division with fractions. So we're going to look at some examples on how dividing works, and then we're going to look at some applications on how to apply your division with fractions. Well, the first thing that we have to look at is we have to look at how division with fractions even gets started. And to do that means we need to know what the reciprocal of a number is. Okay? Well, reciprocal by any other word means you flip it. Flip the number. So in other words, if you started out as being a numerator, well, now you have flipped and become a denominator. Okay? The other thing you always want to make sure that you do with any kind of fractions is reduce, reduce, reduce. Every chance you get, reduce, reduce, reduce. Okay? So first, let's look at reciprocal and what it actually means. So if I have the fraction 2/3 and I want to take the reciprocal, reciprocal says I'm going to simply flip my fraction upside down. So that means I'm going to interchange my 3 and 2, so my reciprocal is actually 3/2. If you have a whole number, we need to remember that this is the same as 7/1, so that means my reciprocal becomes 1/7. Because again, we would flip the 1 and 7, make it stand on its head. Last, if I have 1/9, again, remember reciprocal says I'm going to flip, and so then this would just simply become the whole number 9. Okay, so 3 different types. The first type is I have a number greater than 1 in both my top and bottom. The second type says my denominator was a 1, therefore the reciprocal is a fraction. And my third type says my numerator was the 1, which means the reciprocal is a whole number. Okay? So let's take a real quick look into what that actually means in terms of division. So, division, same as multiplying. And the reason for that is because the very first thing that you're going to do is you are going to rewrite your fractions into a multiplication problem by flipping the reciprocal of the second fraction. Okay? So I have 6/7 divided by 3/5. So I want to go ahead and I want to change this to multiplication. So I'm going to have 6/7. So this is keep the first fraction. I'm going to change my operation to multiplication. I'm going to flip the reciprocal of the second fraction, which makes this 5/3. And now I'm just going to go ahead and apply my multiplication rules. Those rules say you need to look at what you have that might or might not be able to simplify. And so first and foremost, I have a 6/3, and if I look at my 6/3, I notice that that can simplify because 3 goes into 6 nicely. So both of those go away. 3 becomes a 1. My 6 becomes a 2, which means my actual fraction itself is going to become 2/7. So this is 2/7 times 5/1. So now again, just like before, we're going to go ahead and take this. We're going to multiply straight across the top. So 2 times 5/7 times 1. 2 times 5 is 10/7, and I'm done. Okay. So first snapshot into division. So let's go ahead and look at another. So here I have 18 over 5 divided by 2. So again, I'm going to take that and keep my first, so 18 over 5. Change my sign to multiplication. Flip the reciprocal. So this is a whole number, means when I flip it, I'm going to get a fraction. So this becomes 1 over 2. Again, in this case, I want to look at this diagonal here because these will reduce. 2 goes into 18 nicely. So when I get rid of these, my 2 becomes a 1. My 18 becomes a 9. Thus making my fractions 9 over 5 times 1 over 1. So if you multiply straight across the top, you get 9 times 1, which is 9. Straight across the bottom, 5 times 1 is 5. Let's do another one. So I have 6 over 13 times, or divided by 3 over 26. So again, keep the first, 6 over 13. Change it to multiplication and flip the reciprocal of the second. So 26 over 3. Go ahead and start with what's easy. I know 6 over 3 will reduce. So 3 becomes a 1 and the 6 changes to a 2. So that is going to make this the new fraction 2 over 13 times 26 over 1. And then in this case, I also know that 26 and 13 will reduce. Here my 13 becomes a 1 and my 26 becomes a 2. Thus making my fractions 2 over 1 times 2 over 1. So in other words, 2 times 2 is 4. Go ahead and look at the last one here. So I have 7 over 18 divided by 21 over 22. So again, we're going to keep the first, 7 over 18. We're going to change the sign to multiplication, and we're going to flip the reciprocal of the second. Make this 22 over 21. So with this, again, we can look at 7 and 21. Both of these will reduce down. 7 goes away, leaving 1 behind. And when I pull a 7 out of 21, I get a 3. So therefore my fractions become 1 over 18 times 22 over 3. Now I want to go ahead and look at my second one. Both of these are even, so that's how I know for a fact that these will reduce. And here the only thing that's actually in common with them is a 2. If I pull a 2 out of 18, I get a 9. But if I pull a 2 out of 22, I'm left with 11. Therefore making my new fraction 1 over 9 times 11 over 3. Straight across the top and straight across the bottom, 11 times 1 is 11. 9 times 3 is 27. Okay. So that in a nutshell is just good old-fashioned division. So here are just a couple applications. And so again, when you're dealing with the applications, you have to be able to read the problem and find out how to identify that we're dealing with division. And so here we have that a child's baseball skirt requires 5/6 yards of fabric. And it says how many skirts can be made from 25 yards of fabric. So the way that you know that this particularly is a division problem is the fact that we have been given a total or a large quantity, and what we want to know is how many of that large quantity we can pull out using a certain stipulation. And so here we have a total of 25 yards. We want to cut 5/6 yard pieces, and we want to know how many pieces we actually can get. So that's the division problem, which means you're going to take the whole. So we're going to take the whole, which is 25, and we are going to divide it by the part, 5/6. Okay. Now we need to actually do this. So again, remember, this is a whole number, so it's a number over 1. So this is going to be 25/1. We're going to change the sign to multiplication, and we're going to flip the reciprocal. So this becomes 6/5. If we look, we know that we can reduce 25 and 5. We can pull a 5 out of both, so this becomes a 1. And pull a 5 out of 25, and you get 5 left over. So this means that we have 5/1 times 6/1. Multiply straight across the top. You have 5 times 6, which is 30. 1 times 1 is 1. So this is actually going to give you 30 shirts. And because this is a word problem, remember you need to include your labels. Your label can be found in your problem itself, dealing with what it is you're actually looking for. Okay. Alright, here we have a piece of coaxial cable that is 4/5 meters long, and it needs to be cut into 8 pieces of the same length. And the question wants to know what is the length of each piece. Okay, so when we're looking at this, this piece right here is my whole, and this piece right here is my part. So I have 4/5 total cable, and I want to divide that into 8 equal pieces. So I'm going to keep the first, so 4/5. I'm going to change it to multiplication. Remember, this is a whole number, so when I flip it, it becomes a fraction. So this is 1/8. Immediately, you should be able to see that I have 4/8, which will reduce. 4 goes away, leaves 1 behind. 8 goes away, leaves 2 behind. So this is going to be 1/5 times 1/2. Multiply straight across the top leaves me with 1. Straight across the bottom leaves me with 10. And this was meters. Okay? How do we know? Well, the label is right there in the problem. Okay? Alright, last but not least, we have the result of multiplying two numbers is 2/5. Okay, so one thing that we have to know is that this number right here is, well, this means equals. So what I'm actually saying here is I'm saying that I have two numbers multiplied together. So here's my first number, here's my second number, and when I multiply them together, I get 2/5 as a result. So that's what we're talking about. It says if one number is 5/6, then what is the other number? So this means if we look at this, one of my numbers is 5/6. So I have 5/6 times the other number is equal to 2/5. Okay? So if we're looking at it, the 2/5 would be the whole, the 5/6 would be the part. And so again, in general, remember we are doing whole divided by part. And so here I would have that 2/5 is divided by 5/6. Now, don't get too excited yet. Yes, I have a 5 and a 5, but notice I have a division sign. Therefore, what that actually means is that I need to first apply my rule. The rule says keep the first, change the sign, flip the reciprocal, 6/5. Now if you look, I don't have anything in here that is going to reduce, so I'm just simply going to multiply straight across the top. So I'm going to have 2 times 6, and across the bottom 5 times 5. So this gives me 12/25. And since if you look in here there really aren't any labels, then that's the other number, 12/25. So that in a nutshell is everything that you would need to know to get you started with working with division of fractions. Hopefully it was a good refresher. If you have any questions, please let me know. Otherwise, remember, math is bananas. So just keep smiling, ask tons of questions, and make sure you have fun with your math. And as always, I'll see you next time.